what we're trying to do here, Jake was a man of the people, man of the street. I don't know if he owned a car. I guess he did, but I never saw him in one. He was always either walking or on a bicycle, so we thought it appropriate to put something in the street by his beloved alfalfas that dedicated and memorialized all the things he's done for all of us here. So because of that, we are very pleased to be able to present this to the city and to our community. I'm going to call upon right now Mayor Gorton to say a few remarks. Mayor?
Thank you, Jim. Welcome, everyone. It is a beautiful day, early spring, and the sun is shining downtown. First thing I want to do is to welcome our council members, many of whom are here, many of whom served with Jake. We have Vice Mayor Steve Kay. We have Council Member Hannah Legree, who now serves in Jake's seat. We have Councilmember Liz Sheehan from the 5th District, Councilmember Whitney Baxter, Councilmember Josh McKern, Councilmember Preston Worley, Councilmember Amanda Bledsoe, Councilmember Kathy Ploman, and Councilmember James Brown. Have I missed any current council member? Thank you all so much. I know those of you who served with Jake loved him. I also want to welcome former council members who served with Jake, Council Members Bill Farmer and Council Member Jennifer Massotti. Also, to former council member Mark Swanson. Mark, where did you go? There you are. Whom I appointed to finish Councilmember Jake Gibbs' term. Thank you for being here. This is the kind of day when it's easy to close your eyes and imagine Jake strolling along on the sidewalk, enjoying the sunshine. Jake Gibbs made his time on earth count for the good. Walking or cycling around town, he took time to smell the roses, or in his case, the lilacs, to enjoy the beauty of a good book or the shade of an inviting tree. We are celebrating Jake's goodness here today, and I want to thank the Downtown Lexington Management District and Jim and the board for giving our city a way to remember Jake. This plaque placed in his honor here in front of alfalfas. This plaque describes Jake as a dedicated servant to his community, and so he was. He was a self-described city kid who fiercely protected downtown and its historic neighborhoods. Jake fought for the 3rd District and also for his family, his friends, and his students. The plaque we are dedicating today includes a drawing of a tree with very deep roots. Jake put down deep roots when he moved to Lexington in 1978, and we are so glad he did. So last Wednesday, on my weekly call with Governor Beshear, I mentioned that it was exactly 1 year ago that day that Jake had died. And so the governor wanted to send his acclamation, which I would like to read now. And the governor's office will send us the official version later, and we'll get it to you, Anita, and your family. So it reads, whereas Jake Gibbs was a member of the Lexington-Fayette Urban County Council who represented much of downtown and the neighborhoods surrounding the University of Kentucky from 2014 until his unexpected death on March 3rd, 2020, And whereas Mr. Gibbs enjoyed his time outdoors as an avid walker and cyclist and was a compassionate and tenacious environmentalist who described himself as a tree hugger, he worked diligently to improve Lexington's urban forest and safeguard Kentucky's farmland. And whereas Mr. Gibbs was a native of Troy, New York, and moved to Lexington in 1978 to study history at UK, he often called himself a city kid, and he fiercely protected Lexington's historic neighborhoods and downtown. And whereas Mr. Gibbs, a Bluegrass Community and Technical College history and logic instructor prior to his campaign for council, worked as a waiter and dishwasher at Alfalfa Restaurant in graduate school, and in 1987 teamed up with 7 friends and employees to buy and save the struggling restaurant. He later sold his interest in the restaurant but remained faithful to his commitment to feed Lexington and was a devoted supporter of the Lexington Farmers Market. And whereas the Downtown Lexington Management District has placed a new plaque honoring Mr. Gibbs as a dedicated servant to his community in front of Alfalfa's restaurant on Main Street, and whereas Mr. Gibbs was the devoted husband to Anita Courtney and father of his daughters Delaney and Delia, and is deeply missed by his family and many friends. Now, therefore, I, Andy Beshear, Governor of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, do hereby honor Jake Gibbs for his hard work and many contributions to Lexington's community. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Mayor. We will now call upon Vice Mayor Steve Kay to have a few remarks.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you, Mayor, for those remarks, and welcome everybody on this bright and sunny morning, even if it's a little chilly. I just have a few words to add. I want to speak a little bit about why it's appropriate for this plaque to be placed in front of Alfalfa's. So Jake had a long and distinguished career as a public citizen before he became a member of council. And one of the ways in which he contributed to the vitality of this community is by saving Alfalfa's, which is a community treasure. It's a business, but it's really a business oriented to making the community a better place to live. And so it reflected Jake's vision of what the city could be. I also have to say at least a word or two about Jake's kind of a mix of things. Jake was not a character, but he had a lot of character. And one of the things that we know about him, we kind of mention it in an offhand way, was that he taught logic. And he hated it when people couldn't think logically and act logically. And one of his frustrations is that he could never get the waitrons. So Alfalfa's was way ahead of the curve in terms of gender neutrality, and they didn't have waiters and waitresses, they had waitrons. Jake could never get the waitrons to get to the level of service that he thought was appropriate for this endeavor and community. And so it was one of the things that he talked about a lot. So having that plaque in front of Alfalfa's kind of memorializes both the contribution that he made as a public citizen before he got on council, and then how, as has already been said, he became a person who was a fierce advocate for the life of downtown. We regret his passing, of course. We miss him ferociously. Thank you all.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Now I'll call upon Anita Courtney, wife of Jake, and to say a few remarks. Anita?
Good morning. As I was sitting there, I wish I had my Bernie Sanders mittens on. Wish I had thought of that. Thank you to the Lexington Downtown Management District. Thank you to Jim Frazier. Thank you to the artist. I'm sorry, what is your name? Todd White. If you haven't come up and look at it, the plaque is beautiful. This remembrance of Jake is perfect because it brings together three things he loved. Jake Gibbs loved sidewalks because they supported pedestrian traffic. He loved downtowns, and he loved alfalfa. So I'd like to just say a few words about each of those things. Jake was raised in a working class neighborhood in Troy, New York, next to a thriving downtown. And it was a downtown that had a strong bus system, affordable housing, a lot of small local businesses, great arts and cultural features, and a lot of diversity. And he loved it as a kid. And in the 60s and 70s, like many American cities, there was a lot of flight to the suburbs, and that thriving city became a ghost town. And they tore down a lot of historic buildings. And even as a young person, he hated that. In the year 2000, they started revitalizing downtown Troy. I'll wait till that passes. And when we went there in the summer of 2019, he was so happy because it was thriving again. They had done so much work. So he had seen his hometown go from a great city to a ghost town to being rebuilt. So he became a student of cities. I counted, there are 25 books on his bookshelves about the history of cities, urban design, new urbanism, pedestrian safety. And then he also went to every great city that he could go to. One of his favorites was Budapest. And the most recent U.S. cities that we went to were Chattanooga, and he loved, it's so pedestrian friendly. There's a great art museum and a lot of affordable city housing. In December of 2019, we went to Greenville, South Carolina, and he could not get over the sidewalks. They were so wide, and they really were wider than the streets were. So pedestrians over cars, that made him very happy. And now just a few words about alfalfa. I think, as the mayor said, he bought it with his friends for $14,000, didn't have any business experience to speak of, but he did, I think, three things particularly well. And one was procurement. He had a beautiful old beat-up Chevy pickup truck, and the bumper stickers on the back, one said question authority, and the other said kill your television. And he would take that and drive it to the farmer's market way before local was cool, and he knew who had the best tomatoes, the best greens, the best garlic. And then when alfalfa moved from campus area to here, he jumped back in again, and he traded that pickup truck in for a wagon because the farmer's market was right down the street. The other thing he was good at was special events. And I think the event that he was proudest of was Count Kazimierz Pulaski Night. And it was a night featuring Polish cuisine. And in case you don't know, Kazimierz Pulaski is who Pulaski County, Somerset is named after. And he was a military strategist that Benjamin Franklin talked into coming to help with the Revolutionary War here. And one of the chefs, Paul Nowacki, was of Polish descent, and he made fabulous Polish food. So there would be these Polish nights. And one time, Jake got the Judicial Center of Somerset to bring this huge bust of Count Pulaski and put it on the counter in the restaurant to oversee everybody eating their pierogies and potato pancakes and cabbage rolls. And that thing weighed 800 pounds. But that was a real joy to him. And while I'm on the subject of alfalfa, I just want to recognize a few people in the group here. If you'll raise your hands, Helen Alexander and Kathy Martin, who were the matriarchs of alfalfa and held it together and raised up the young people there. Kathy Ramsey, our surrogate daughter, and my daughter Delia Gibbs, who was raised on Hoppin' John, and she and her sister Delaney started working there as soon as child labor laws allowed that they could. One last alfalfa story. Here were Jake's two hiring questions. He'd look the applicant in the eye and he'd say, "Do you show up late?" And then he'd say, "Do you steal stuff?" And he'd use his lie detector abilities to see how they responded to those questions. I thank you so much for this. It softens our sorrow a bit to have other people love and honor and remember Jake with us. So thank you all for coming. And now I would like to introduce to you the new owners of alfalfa, Tiffany Belfield Elamine and Wally Belfield Elamine, who Jake would be really glad that they took the baton because alfalfa is almost 50 years old. So.
Thank you, and thank you all for coming. It is an honor to be a part of the alfalfa story, to serve Lexington, and to further Jake Gibbs' legacy of love.
So when we took over alfalfas, we too had a mission to help strengthen our economy and our local food system. And our farmers were going through a time, you know, markets were closing, schools weren't doing a lot of farm to school anymore. And we decided that we wanted to continue the legacy of building community and having alfalfa be a space not just to feed our dine-in, but to feed the community, partnering with organizations, and a lot of the work that Jake did, a lot of the work that these other alfalfians is what I call them, did, and this path that you all put for us. I'm pretty much a young person, so it was just amazing to see all the work, all the love, all the pictures, all the memories of alfalfas, the family that you all had, and we have tried to pour that back into the community and try to keep people employed and keep people feeding and eating. I remember Jake added me on Facebook, and I thought he was just a councilman, and he came to Castlewood, and we do a pollinator garden in Castlewood Park, and we worked with the kids out in Castlewood, and he just popped up, and he was just the coolest dude ever, you know? And I went on his Facebook, and I was like, he has literally championed and pioneered all the work that I find myself in today. And I'm just so appreciative to be this added puzzle piece to what is going to be a larger scheme of puzzle piece and patchwork that we're going to do here in Central Kentucky. So this is amazing. We'll continue to do what we do. We're always open to all the great things that used to be alfalfa as we're doing a new alfalfa so we can blend the two. And we're just thankful. We're thankful to be a part of the process. So yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Cool dude. I like that. I like that. Anita,
on the plaque.
It should be on the plaque. That's a good point, Anita. Cool dude. On behalf of the management district, thank you all for coming, for all the folks who spoke up here. And Anita, thank you. Thank you and your family for sharing Jake with us and this community for so many years. We're better off for it. Y'all be safe, enjoy the plaque, and keep Jake in your thoughts today and tomorrow. Take care. Thank you all.